right, welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate. This is our Star Wars Unlimited podcast, and this is episode 25 coming at you tonight. We have a amazing show planned for you. We have all of the spoilers from last week, and yes, we have my absolute favorite character of Star Wars ever created. I don't care what anyone says. JJ and I are going to have a great time talking about him tonight. But we have Mr. Bones coming into play, baby. I have to spoil it right there. But we're going to talk all the spoilers from last week. I love them. Mr. Bones, my favorite character. I loved it in Destiny. I'm actually going to get my Mr. Bones mat out that I won in Destiny and use it in these upcoming tournaments. We're also going to talk about the French. It was a French 150 person tournament. I thought it would be very interesting to kind of talk a little bit about the statistics, go over a few of the lists that kind of made it, talk a little bit about, where they're coming in and what they're doing, and then go over some of the shore store showdowns that they had up there. And if that wasn't enough for you, I have a small little segment called Jango is a Menace. I think we might have misjudged Jango. Jango might be one of the more broken cards. We'll see, though. We'll get your opinions coming up here in just a minute. With that being said, let me bring in my co-host for the evening. Please welcome to the show, Mr. JJ. The Giants still suck and are going to suck no matter how many times you wear that hat. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. I had a great time yesterday. Went out to the store showdown that we had over at Atomic Empire in Durham. Got to meet Mike from Virginia. He drove all the way down to participate, and he ended up winning the event, which is crazy. But it was a fun time. Got to meet a lot of players that I know from X-Wing. That are playing SWU as well, and just had a blast. I scrubbed out at 1 and 3. My one being a buy that I got, but still, it was a lot of fun, and just happy to get some SWU in and play.
Fair enough. I do think the Giants have a worse record than the Lions do, my friend.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. Yeah.
It's not unfortunate. It's for a reason.
Yeah, we can't throw deeper than 20 yards. That's why.
I can contest to that. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when they lost again. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like,
I know, man.
Anyway, enough sportsy ball talk. I had a pretty good weekend too. We got together with a couple of my friends on Saturday and we jammed some games to practice. We got Planetary Qualifiers coming up. What I used to do in the past is we used to sit down for hours and in jam games. I couldn't get the guys to sit there for like 10 hours, but I did get a couple hours out of everybody and we got to sit down and play. I'm still torn on my deck, to be honest with you. Like, I'm now stuck between Boba Green, Pelp Red. Yes, Pelp Red. I said it there, folks. Boba Green, Pelp Red, and Kira. Like, those are kind of my three choices. I don't want to swerve to Sabine. I don't think it's worth it at this point to play Sabine. And I really, I have been thinking about playing Bosk Blue, and we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight because it's had some success lately, and it does have success against Sabine. But the feeling I have is that you'll be able to figure out how to play tech against that, and that in 2 weeks, by the time I go to a Planetary Qualifier, it's not going to beat Sabine any longer. Like, my guess is Sabine will transition, which I'm hoping it does transition a little bit to more of a tempo deck, because then if it moves to a tempo deck, my Pelp Red deck will crush it. But anyway, with that being said, Alex is off tonight. He was feeling a little under the weather, was at a store championship. He came in third, ironically enough, at his store showdown this weekend. We won't go over all of the lists or any of that stuff tonight for his. We'll talk about that next week when he's back on. Also, in other news, we still haven't, if you still want to, please subscribe to the channel. We still have giveaways that we'd like to do. Once we hit 500 subscribers, we got giveaways. We got a Vader card, a Vader legendary card, which you want it now so you can resell the thing before it goes down in value when they reprint the set here in 2 months, or just add it to your collection so you don't have to rebuild a bunch of decks. So if you want to, we have all of the links up below. You can scan any of them with the QR codes, and it'll take you to all of our different fun stuff. With that being said, the last thing that we have is, I promised a deck tech for a while. I've been neglecting to get you deck tech. I will have a deck tech this week with special guest Crispy from our X-Wing days. We're going to do a deck tech together, and I thought that would be kind of fun because I haven't hung out with Crispy since World. So It's kind of crazy. It's been a long time. It's what all y'all get for living in Florida.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Well, why don't we go ahead and let's kick off our show with our Galactic Gazette. Welcome to our Galactic Gazette. Thank you all so much for joining us for our spoilers. Tonight we have the new leaders that came out this week, plus some of the cards that came out. Thought we'd go over them with you. One of the big things that we are not going to talk about, is the Galactic Qualifier prizes. They didn't have their stream this week. FFG came back and kind of said, "Hey guys, I heard you. We might change some of the pricing," and so it's really not worth going over some of that at this current time. I will say there was a little bit of a down tick, in my opinion. I like competitive events, but when you're going to offer $40 events and the only real major prize is that we get a ticket to Worlds out of it, I don't know, like for one person too, right? Not even top 16, not top 8, just one person. I think that kind of helps defeat that purpose. I would rather see be like top 16 get Worlds tickets, and then that $40 price is probably worth it a little bit more. But either which way, JJ, let's go over some of the new leaders tonight. We got 2 brand new leaders coming at you, Captain Rex and Newt Gunray. JJ, which one do you want?
So I'm going to take Newt Gunray. I'm really excited for this particular leader here. So Newt Gunray comes in with the blue and villainy aspects. And its action reads, if 2 or more friendly units were defeated this phase, create a battle droid token. And his leader ability comes in with 2 attack, 8 health, and it reads, on attack, create a battle droid token. This is absolutely great for you to spam a bunch of droids into your list. If you're able to continuously generate those battle droid tokens, that means you can now start putting out a lot of the exploit cards out on the tables a lot more reliably, as you're generating those battle droid tokens a lot easier in order for you to exploit some of the larger cards faster. Works really well with some of the stuff that we've seen already. I could definitely see this comboing with green really easily for some of the separatist cards that we've seen, and it's really great. I think this is going to be something that we're going to see a lot. It feels like an aggro style leader that just helps you bring out bigger units that can punch harder for cheaper, and you can pair this with a lot of cards that we've seen already with this list here. So it's definitely going to be good.
Yeah, I don't know, if 2 or more friendly units were defeated this phase, create a battle toy droken. I think that's fine. Like, I think that's good. I think the issue I have with him is that when he flips, right, it takes 6 resources, so he's not going to be that aggro. I don't think you're going to be able to aggro with 6. I mean, he's not going to come out till 6, right? And by 6, you should be closing the game out.
Well, I mean, the reason, and I probably should elaborate a little bit more, but if you're trying to really go heavy into this particular leader, right, and you have green, you can already put super laser technicians on there, which you're already trying to get killed, so that way they can get resourced on there. So this really just plays into that, especially if you end up playing 2 super laser techs that end up getting defeated, especially if you like exploit them, if your opponent chooses not to kill them. That helps you replace those units that you lost. You're getting those extra resources, and you get a battle droid token on top of that to replace one of those units that you lost. So it really creates like a bit of an economy for Newt Gunray to bring out those droids faster, and you're able to get more resources in quicker, which allows Newt Gunray to come out sooner on earlier turns.
Sure, and I don't disagree with that. I just don't think he's going to be an aggro deck. I think he's going to be more mid-range to between a mid-range and a control. I actually see this as this could be a possible somewhat of a like a burn unit control deck, where you're, instead of using cards to kill your the other units, you're using your units to wipe the board, kind of like what we do with Pelp.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we do with Pelp Red. When we play Pelp Red, we use our units as well as like out of hand damage, but a lot of times it's units too that will come in and just like kind of crush. And that's where I see he fits in. I am not 100% sold. Maybe we need a few more cards, but I'm not 100% sold
I
about the
mean,
defeating 2 units.
yeah,
Like every turn, like you're getting a 1 for 2, which
yeah,
you're right. Like super laser tech, you want to kill, but the only way to defeat units is either your opponent has to kill them or you have to try to kill other opponents. So that's why I don't think he's going to be an aggro deck ever, because he's just your battle droid swinging it. Like nobody's going to care as much about that. If you're fighting another aggro deck, they're just going to go to base. They're not going to go take care of all your units. They only care about taking care of your units if it messes with their game plan.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair. Honestly, I think the other part of this too that would work with this a lot, to kind of help your units stay alive longer is adding in like Snoke, for instance. Just creating that -2 for your opponent for health and attack,
yeah,
really helps out as well. And especially if you could put in some cheap sentinel units on the board as well, that your opponent has to go through. That's another way to force your opponent to go in and eliminate some of your units, and that we can redeploy battle droid tokens when you lose those units. So,
yeah. And I would say, folks, if you have the ability to buy extra Snokes, now's the time to buy Snokes, right? Because I'm telling you, like this set, they're going to give us a bunch of 1 and 2 cost things. If you can make it to 8 resources, you just drop Snoke and like wipe half their board. It's like better than an overwhelming barrage. um,
yeah,
So I agree with you though. So let's look at Captain Rex. This is one that we kind of spoiled because it was on the back art cover. Um, this one says, for 2 resources in an action, if a friendly unit attacked this phase, so any unit, doesn't have to be a clone trooper unit, just any unit attack this phase, you could create a clone trooper token. So basically, you spend 2 resources, you get a unit, a 2/2 unit, which is not great, but not bad, and it works really well with coordinate aspects. So if you're running other cards that have coordinate, this like allows you to do it. It also, you know, what this also helps decks that think pillage is so much fun. This just like, oh, you're gonna pillage my cards. Fine, I'll play a droid token and save my cards. You know, like turn one or not turn one, turn two, you can do that. Turn one, you gotta swing. Um, when he flips, he is a 2/6, but he comes out on 5, so he is coming out earlier. And when deployed, create a clone trooper token, and each friendly trooper unit gets +1 health. So they're now 2/3s. That's pretty good. I think his deployability is pretty bloody good.
yeah, definitely. I think it's really strong for him coming out at 5 and having that stat line. I do like that you're able to give other friendly trooper units +1 as well. And the fact that it's not restricted to clones means that you can put other trooper units on there, that allow you to get extra health. I'm thinking of the Battlefield Marine, I believe, if I remember correctly. That's the 3 cost Sentinel unit that comes in with 3 health, making it a 4 health. It's absolutely great, and there's a lot of different trooper units that really benefit from that could benefit from this. So yeah,
All right, let's move on to some of the cards. We actually have some really good surprises like this week that I was a little bit
yeah.
like good for. Which one do you want, JJ? I'll let you go first.
I'll give you Mr. Bones, but I'm gonna take Sword and Shield Maneuver, which is great because this is a great callback to Clone Wars with Rex and Ahsoka, which is really great. So this one is a 2 cost heroic aspect card, and it reads: Give each friendly trooper unit raid 1 for this phase, and give each friendly Jedi unit Sentinel for this phase. So it really plays into the mix of Jedi and clone troopers. There are definitely going to be some combos out there between Jedi's and clone and troopers that we're going to see that really benefit from this particular tactic card. Definitely, we'll see some play in certain decks. It's definitely a good way to help redirect some of the attacks into your Jedi units. That can be a little more tankier than others, especially if you can give them like lightsabers that increase their health, or a shield token, and force your opponents to go into those units while the rest of your troopers gain a buff on their offense. So definitely something that we'll see in certain decks. I think you'll definitely see some play.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 cost, right? And you talk about, so the only I think the only downside to this, right, is it's not like an immediate, it's not like an ambush type card. You know, like think about like Rebel Assault is a 1/1 and you get to immediately attack, right? That's why it's really good in Sabine. This one is everybody gets +1, and then each friendly Jedi unit becomes Sentinel for this phase. I think that's still pretty good because then it still protects your, like, so let's say you have a bigger board, it protects your board, but still allows something. So they have to kill your Jedi then first. So I think for 2 costs, I think this is a good card. I think the artwork's amazing on it. And I do agree with you. I like the throwback that it has. So like it's just kind of like we got they're like going all ham with this set, you know.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Jedi Master on the card, that's Kanan's master, right? From the beginning of Bad Batch.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so.
that's pretty awesome.
So, all right. I get to go over the next one. It's Mr. Bones. This is my favorite character in Star Wars. I don't care what anyone says. This is like literally my favorite character ever. And like, I don't know if I could do the voice. Like, okay, so there's a little bit of backstory, and I'm sorry for tangenting. Like, this is like 100%. This is like a clippable moment because Tanner's going to go on a whole tangent about why he loves Mr. Bones. My son introduced me to the series, right, with Temmin in it. And so this is Temmin Wexley's droid. So basically, Temmin gets abandoned by his mother, not on purpose, but like on accident, right? There was some such. I don't want to give away the whole book series, but
it's the Aftermath series for those who don't know. Yeah,
sorry, it's the Aftermath series. And it's from 2016. So in fairness, we're almost 10 years, right? We're almost 10 years down the road. So I probably can spoil a little bit of it. But essentially, Temmin takes a B1 battle droid and builds builds like he modifies it and then builds this like Mad Max looking thing. And he's not all red, if I remember right, in the books. I don't remember what Temmin says his paint job is, but like he says like things like Roger, Roger, be gone, master, or something like that, or bodies be gone, master. And he's like, I perform violence. And he has like, if you listen to the audiobook, it's just great. Like it's like
he's the happiest battle droid that is absolutely psychotic. Like it's great.
And he is. And he was like in Destiny, like he wasn't super great in Destiny, but he was just so much fun to be able to play. And then they had a whole artwork. So if you stayed to Destiny to the end, one of the last mats that they gave away in the play sets, like in the like weekly playset type things, was a Mr. Bones mat that you could run a tournament for. And I won one with my Ewoks deck. And so I have one just like, and it's like it was my favorite mat. It was my favorite mat till my son got me a Clone Wars mat. And then that's kind of more of my favorite mat now because it's thicker. It feels a lot better. But man, Mr. You just can't pass up Mr. Bones. If you've never read the Aftermath or listened to the Aftermath trilogy, by far it is like to me when it comes to Star Wars lore, and I know we're tangenting so much here, but for Star Wars lore, the Aftermath series fills in so many gaps for kind of what happens. And like this is all pre-Mandalorian stuff, right? So this is talking about how the new Republic is being built, and this is where before we get Resistance and all of that stuff. The other book that is really important to read, in my opinion, is I can't remember the name of it, but there's a Leia book where they go into the aftermath, kind of the same thing where Leia becomes a senator, and it's like this whole thing. Those 4 books, by far, just some of the best writing in Star Wars history, just hands down. Like I wish they would actually take Aftermath and make that a TV show or a movie.
Yeah, that would be amazing if they did, man. Yeah, for sure.
And just because I get a Mr. Bones, and then I would be super excited, and I would 100% go to the theater, and I would just sit there and quote Mr. Bones the whole time. Every time he came on screen, I would quote him. I perform violence. All right. Anyway, let's talk about the card. It's a double red. It's a 1 cost. It's a 3/1. On attack, if you have no cards in your hand, you may deal 3 damage to a ground unit. So it's just a 3/1. That's what this is. This is a 3/1. This is like our Greedo, but it's for double red. You could play this for a 3 cost. I don't know if I would. But this goes very well in that mono theme deck. I don't think I don't know. We'll see. It's really silly to pay 3 for a 3/1 that could just die right away. But it is a droid. This does work with IG-88, right? And this can be you. I'm guessing we're going to get some cards that say dig for droids at some point, and this would kind of fit into that. I will play this card. I don't know where. I will happily play Kylo double yellow or double red just to play this, to specifically just to play this card. That's what it'll be. I also have been contemplating a double red Maul deck, and been playing around with that a little bit because Maul gets all the overwhelm and grit, and something like this is just super good. Like if you don't have cards in your hand, you could play this at the last thing. You could ambush this thing out. You could do a whole bunch of different things with this thing, and it just, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it even pairs very well with the hot shot, the DL-44 blaster.
Yeah,
If it's ready, you equip it onto this droid, and it immediately gets to attack, and then you're able to deal 3 damage to a unit, and then you also have its standard boosted attack there. So, in a double red Maul deck, this would absolutely do a ton of damage with overwhelm. And yeah, I think that there's potential for this particular card. The double red penalty kind of is, a bit tough because, paying 3 costs, like you said, is a bit much for this particular droid. But it is a glass cannon, and it could definitely do some work as a glass cannon.
yeah. So not as good as Greedo in the long run, but still a pretty good unit. So let's move on because I'll wax poetic about Mr. Bones all day. So
All right. So the next one here is the Geonosis Patrol Fighter. So this one is a 5 cost yellow aspect card coming in at 3 attack and 2 health, with Separatist Vehicle and Fighter keywords. It has Exploit 2, and when played, you may return a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less to its owner's hand. So really good, actually. It does feel pretty on theme for like tractor, right? You're tractoring a unit away back into their hand. A little X-wing terminology there. But yeah, I think definitely this has almost the same strength as a Cantina Bouncer in terms of its effect when it gets played out. Of course, you're doing it with a 3 cost or less. Cantina Bouncer definitely being a little bit better than this, but you're also able to exploit this for cheaper. Even if you're just exploiting 1 unit to get this out there, coming in at 3 costs is decent. Um, but yeah, it definitely could see some play in the right decks there. Just being able to control the board, getting some of those cheaper units out from the board, to like prevent your opponent from like using a sentinel to prevent your attacks from getting out there, removing that sentinel away, or if you have like a unit that has a lot of experience points and they're cheap, and you're able to send them out and make them discard all those sentinel units, or even something that has a dark saber and is 3 or less, you can make them go back into the hand and discard the dark saber. So there's definitely some edge cases for this here for what it can do. It's just paying that extra cost to get it in cheaper is a bit rough, but there are some edge cases for it.
fair enough. I think the big thing with this, I don't think this is a card is like super great. It is a common, so it's basically if you could kill a droid, you could play this for 3, and it's got a free mini waylay. That's what it is. So
Yeah,
it's nice we're getting more space units, so that is a little bit nicer. It does help us if we want to start moving towards like bigger space decks. I mean, I only say this because if you think about it, like you could run, like there is a Kylo space deck and there's a Boba Red space deck. You could run something similar, start creating space decks where you are populating droids on the ground and then using this to kill off the droids instead of your opponent. Because who's gonna spend a 4 attack on a 1/1 unit? Probably not you.
yeah.
I don't know. It's okay. It's nothing super amazing. So, all right. The next one we have another Emphy's Nest. I like the artwork on this card, but it's an Underworld 7 cost hero 5/7. It's got Saboteur, which is really nice. I'm glad it's 7 though, so you can't ambush this stupid thing out.
Yeah.
And then just defeat something with a shield on it. That would be crazy. When played and on attack, you may return an enemy non-leader unit with less power than this unit to its owner's hand. That's pretty good. And and it doesn't have to be what you're attacking, so it can be anything else. So I do think that, like, I still think, like, I mean, when we look at Han and Han goes, well, I could just kill something and still live, versus this, it's gonna have to have a little niche thing. But if you want to build like some sort of underworld hero deck, I think this could be a possible land for you. And I won't like I won't say you having 5 power is good if you could build this card up so that it's like a 7/7 or a 8/7 or whatever, like with some sort of an upgrade. You can then start taking other things off the board. But it is returning their unit, so if they have resources ready, just be very careful, like how they do
Yeah.
that. But I will tell you, like, you know what this would be exciting to go against is like when Mace comes in swinging, and you go, oh,
Mhm.
here's a Mace that's coming in swinging, and oh, I'm going to play this and get rid of your Mace so it doesn't get to do a second attack. Can be useful.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of don't like that the card has the restriction of the hero aspect on it, because now it forces you to play it on hero decks without you can't really play on dark side decks without paying that aspect penalty. But still, having that ability can be particularly strong. There are a number of ways to make it strong with like different types of blaster units, or even snapshot, for instance, which would be pretty strong there, or even a surprise strike just to buff it up and return a potential even sentinel unit that's kind of blocking the way so that we can go right into the base. It's strong. I like it. I
It's
just wish
okay.
that we had it available for villainy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You don't need it in villainy. All right, let's move on to what's the new base that we got?
All right, so we got the new red aspect base, Shadow Collective Camp, and it comes with 25 health, and it reads: when you deploy a leader, you draw a card, and that's the extent of it. Um, Honestly, probably just gonna go into my collection of cards and not use it. Like, ECL feels a lot stronger than just drawing a card. So
Yeah, I don't know. If you look at Tarkin Town too, like Tarkin Town's 3 damage to a damage unit. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not personally sold on this base either, but that's just me. It is say Shadow Collective though, right? So I guess if we're gonna run a mall, maybe we do it with mall
yeah,
just
fair. Yeah,
because it'll be thematic.
yeah.
All right. The next one we have is called Battle Droid Legion. This is a 9 cost villain card that is a 6/5 separatist droid and a trooper. It has exploit 2, so it can come in at 5. When defeated, you get to create 3 battle droid tokens. It's okay. It's you got to defeat battle droid tokens to bring it in cheaper, and then when it's defeated, you create 3 of them back again. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's like the mechanic piece of that is really decent. Um, I just I don't know. Again, I'm gonna have to sit down and actually build like a droid token deck. That's what we're gonna have to build. I think first.
Yeah, definitely. This is one of the cards I was eyeing when we saw New Gun Ray come out, because this is again one of those cards that you could play for a lot cheaper, bringing it out you to trigger New Gun Ray's ability, assuming that your opponent has already done that for you, and you're able to spawn another unit and have this out on the board there. If you're able to ambush this in on top of that, and potentially knock something out, even if your opponent ends up killing it in the ambush, you now have 4 battle droid tokens that replaces this. So there's definitely a lot of utility for this particular one, and it also helps you set up for any further potential exploits that can come out from
Yeah.
sacrificing this unit. So yeah,
Yeah, I like again I have the IG 11 unit at 6/5 that can't be captured and all these other things.
yeah,
We don't that doesn't see play. I don't foresee this seeing a ton of play. It is it the being able to create 3 1 cost units is probably decent. Um, I don't know. We'll see.
mhm.
What one do you want next, JJ?
Let's go with the multi troop transport. So this is the 7 cost one. This one coming in at 3 attack, 6 health. This one's a separatist vehicle and tank, and this one also comes in with exploit 2. And on attack, it create a battle droid token. So this is a good vehicle transport unit that can come in at potentially 4 costs, and you're able to deploy battle droid tokens as you start attacking with this one here. Definitely something that I would consider running, especially with the green upgrade stand ready, if I remember that correctly, that allows you to ready an exhausted unit, and that way they can attack another ground unit on the battle. So you have the potential to potentially just deploy 2 more battle droid tokens, especially if this got ambushed out. So there's that potential there. Again, probably a magical Christmas land kind of thing of like just really maximizing this, but something I would absolutely consider in the deck with new gunray.
Fair enough. Next, we have a 2-cost Rune Hako Separatist official. We're getting a blue official. That's cheap. I like that. Goes good in my pulp deck. It is a 3/2. It is when played, if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, you may give a unit -1/-1 for this phase. So it's the kind of like a free make an opening, but only for -1/-1. I think it's decent. I think it's decent in the aspect of it's a 3/2 for 2 costs, but I don't think it's like that amazing. It will be good against other villain, but it's not going to be super good against troopers. I don't know. We'll see. Again, it's okay. It's okay. There you go. It's not revolutionary. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. JJ, what one do you want next?
Next one I'm going to take is the Malevolence, which is the capital ship for General Grievous during the Clone Wars. So this one here is a 9-cost blue and villainy aspect, coming in at 7 health with separatist vehicle and capital ship keywords, coming in with exploit 4. So you could potentially play this for, golly, what?
2?
1 cost?
No, it would be 2. Oh, 1
Oh, yeah,
cost.
2
Yes.
cost. Yeah, it is
1
1 cost.
cost.
Yeah,
Yep, it is 1 cost. You're right.
So comes in with restore 2, and by the way, that's bonkers, coming in at 1 cost for this kind of ship. And it reads, when played, give an enemy unit -4 for this phase, and it cannot attack for this phase. Really great way to neuter like a really strong sentinel unit that's out on the board there, or even a unit that could potentially like do a big hit into your base. Just preventing that unit from attacking for the phase can be absolutely strong. Definitely something I think we're going to see a lot of play in, especially with decks that can create tokens a lot faster. Again, new Gunray comes into mind. I'm going to be calling out a lot of cards for new Gunray just because he plays very well into exploit decks. But yeah, I'm excited to get this here. I think I would absolutely run like 3 copies of this in my deck for sure.
Yeah, I think if we pay the full price at the 9 cost, it's not as good as we think it is.
Yeah.
How about this? At 7 cost, with the fact that it has 2 restore, so even if you just kill 1 unit, which that's all I'm saying is kill 1 unit, it's now a 7/7/7. It has restore 2 on it, which is amazing. It is give an enemy -4, and they can't attack this phase. So this card, in my opinion, this card is not as good as like Avenger, but because of the fact that I could play this a lot earlier than Avenger, depending on my board state, and I feel that's what they're doing is they're saying, okay, well, these aggro decks like want to just go face. They don't want to touch your board. They don't care about your board. So you put Sentinel down. That's the only way you have to like try to stop them. Now you could just throw these droid tokens down. And it's like, okay, well, you got to kill a droid token. If you don't kill this droid token, then guess what's going to happen? I'm going to be able to play this, on turn 3 or 4 because I just got a bunch of battle droids sitting out there. And oh, by the way, now I can start restoring my base. I could then neuter your Sabine. I can neuter your Moff Gideon. I can neuter, I don't know, your Kylo, like anything. And it's just so good. Like if there's a way to get this out, the Sabine's flip turn, if somehow you are able to actually get this out, Sabine's flip turn, okay, great. That's super, super, super good. I actually like this card. I agree with you, JJ. I don't know if I consider a 3 of yet, because there's so many things coming out. But like as a ship of itself, I think this is actually a really good card personally. I'm actually kind of surprised this is not more of like a legendary. This feels more legendary-ish. Like this feels really good.
Yeah.
So, and if it's in theme, right? It's Grievous, so now I'm gonna have to run a Grievous blue deck. It's gonna be an all control Grievous blue deck. There you go. I'm gonna put battle droids out. You kill the battle droids, or I bring this ship out on turn 4.
Yeah.
Or 3. Anyway. I'm gonna pick the card that I feel is broken. Now there are 2 of them. So this is obviously referencing the Rule of 2, which is a card that was, by the way, in Destiny. I know I say this a lot, but like the designers came from this is a legendary. This is a trick, by the way. It's a yellow trick, so this can work with Jabba, Bib, all sorts of things. If you control exactly 1 unit, play a non-vehicle unit from your hand that shares a trait with the unit you control. And it now costs 5 less. So, those separatist units that we talk about, it just has to share that. Guess what? This ship, you can now play this ship here for 5 less, and you can play this for 4 without killing anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can also kill things and play this for that. So you can play this card. So basically, you're getting 2 free resources. So now this is a 7, right? And then you can kill 4 or 3 things and make this 1 cost, and you can bring this out even earlier. Just
that's insane, man.
This now there are 2 of them, and the fact that this is neutral and this is not like this is not villain or hero. This is insane. There are so many keywords. I mean, we could just scroll up right and look. This one says separatist vehicle tank, separatist droid trooper, separatist official. This one says underworld. That's not going to be as good, right? This one has fringe droid, separatist. There's all sorts of crazy stuff now. I could play Mr. Bones, and anything that has fringe on it can now come in 5 cheaper. So basically, you're getting a 2-cost discount.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think this card is insane. I think this card is going to warp and change the meta. This card is going to make so many things viable. This is like, you don't have to worry about smuggle, guys. You can just play something. Now, you do have to have it in hand, and it cannot be a vehicle, right? So you can't play like a tank. You can't play Fet's Fire Spray, for instance, or you can't play a Falcon or any of these other things. So there is things that it does restrict. So it's not like insanely powerful, but I think this card, hands down, I feel that this card is like one of the top cards of this set so far.
Yeah, definitely. And like, when I first looked at this, the first thing I went to was like Zuckuss and Forlom. They both share the bounty hunter trait, and you're able to get ambush off immediately. So you're able to get in a unit that comes in at 5 cost less, which is pretty much that, almost paying that for free, and get that ambush in immediately and getting that damage in there. It's definitely really, really strong. I mean, I definitely would put this auto include in my Thrawn deck because I'm always looking to make Thrawn better somehow. But yeah, I mean, this is really strong, especially with Bib Fortuna making this even cheaper. I mean, golly, this is
Jabba. Jabba makes this cheaper.
Yeah, Jabba. Yep.
Jabba makes this a 2-cost. I mean, there's just so many things. Obvious, like the pictures on there is Pelp and Maul, right? Like, and somebody in the chat said that basically it's meant to be played, Maul, and then you can play Pelp and blah blah blah, and that's probably true. Like, if you have Maul out, you can bring Pelp out, and then that's gonna be really good. I've already started looking at a Maul. I want Maul red, like double red, just for Mr. Bones, but Maul yellow feels really good right now, especially with this card.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on because I could spend all day. Maybe we'll do a segment and we'll talk about it with Alex when he comes back. All right, JJ, give us Nameless Valor.
Yeah, Nameless Valor here, coming at 1 cost, and it's a green aspect card, and it can attach to a token unit only. The attached unit gains Overwhelm, and it gives it a +2/+2 when you attach it on there. Probably meant to be attached to Clone Troopers, since the battle droids only have a 1/1. But this could potentially make some of that generic Clone Trooper just a bit stronger. Probably see some play in sh- uh, in the deck for Captain Rex, since he gives a buffs to trooper units. He makes them +1 on their defense. Could go well with that as well. Just making like a really tanky unit that can like just plow through like battle droids. Definitely could see some play. I mean, at one cost, it's cheap, and you're giving a unit overwhelm. And I'm sure there are other ways to buff it, especially when you look at some of the previous Jedi units that we spoiled before. But yeah, definitely we'll see some play.
All right, let's move on to Obedient Vanguard. It is a separatist droid trooper. It's a 1/1/1. It's got raid 1. When defeated, give a trooper unit +2/+2 this phase.
Hmm.
It's okay. I don't think it's bad. I mean, it'll be good in my Pelp deck. I can play it and just Pelp it. It's a 2 cost. Give something +2/+2, and it gives, me a card and does damage to you. Seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, pulp, and you put in the flamethrower trooper, and you make it a 4/4,
Yeah.
and it deals damage first. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
strong. Yeah,
Yeah, your incinerated trooper. Yeah. So,
yeah,
I
the
don't know.
incendiary trooper. Yeah,
I think this is cool. I think we're gonna have to be very careful, like, because you can only have so many cards, and we haven't seen massive card draw yet. So,
yeah,
like,
that's true.
they have 100% gone out of the way to nerf card draw to some extent. Like, they make card draw cost, and I I I don't agree with that, but whatever, it is what it is. Um, I just
Yeah,
think I think it's powerful, but I don't think it's that powerful. Right? You still
yeah.
only
I
got so
mean,
many damn resources to play.
yeah, and ultimately, like, if you really want to get card draw in there, you could throw in some bounties into your deck, so that way you can get, like, draw a card and such. But again, that's you spending an extra turn and resource in order to get that card draw, so it makes it a little less effective. But yeah.
All right, JJ, why don't you take the next two? They are identical to
Yeah.
some extent, so just hit us with both of them.
Yeah, so the less effective one, I would say, is the 2 cost clone cohort coming in with the red aspect cost, and it reads: attach unit gets raid 2, and when defeated, create a clone trooper token. Does not provide any buffs to it other than the raid 2. And then the other one is a yellow aspect, 1 cost droid cohort. This one reads: when defeated, create a battle droid token, and it gives it a +1/+1 for that particular unit. Definitely some use. I think probably more use for the droid cohort more than the clone cohort. My main thing about raid is, sure, it's really great for offense, but it does nothing for you defensively. So your opponent can essentially uh, defeat that unit that has it, so that way it doesn't get the full offensive bonus of raid. And yeah, it's going to create a clone trooper token, but at least that clone trooper token is not going to have raid. The droid cohort, on the other hand, you're making the battle droid a 2/2. It's not a big deal breaker, but the fact is that you're letting that unit spawn again for 1 cost. And considering all the other units that create clone troopers, or excuse me, battle droid tokens, cost a little more expensive, this is a good way to just keep on regenerating those. And it doesn't have to be attached to a token unit either. You can attach it to any unit that's on your board there. But yeah, it's definitely something that could be really good in the right deck.
All right, so let's move on. I think they're a little bit more important than we think they are. It's just because you're going to be able to create something out of it. So, like, at minimum, you're paying 2 costs or 1 cost to create a token unit, and at maximum, you're getting a +1 buff or a +2 buff. So,
Yeah.
well, all right, that ends our Galactic Gazette tonight. That is all that we have for spoilers. Let's move on to a different segment. I wanted to do this because I think we originally kind of dismissed Jango, and I thought a good academy training would be, let's sit down and actually talk a little bit about, right, what Jango can do, what the cards are that are involved in it, and all of that fancy jazz. So here is our academy training where we talk about, let's look at Jango, his exhaustibility, and is it broken? Welcome back to our Academy training segment tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Jango Fett Leader, his exhaustibility. I don't know. I kind of this was like, this is gonna be good, but whatever. And then we started looking at the card pool, and there's like at least 30 cards. And so I wanted to do a short segment where we talk a little bit about this because A, I think it's important, and B, my God, like some of the cards that you play that do it are just so amazing. So to kick us off, JJ, tell us what the new Jango Fett Leader does. Let's go ahead and review with everybody so everybody knows exactly what happens.
Yeah, so the Jango Fett comes in a yellow and villainy aspect card, and his leader card reads: when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, you may exhaust this leader, and if you do, exhaust that enemy unit. He deploys with 5 resources, and on his leader unit side, he is a 3 attack Underworld Bounty Hunter with 7 health, and he reads: when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, you may exhaust that unit. And note that the deployed leader unit does not require you to tap the card in order for you to use that ability. So you can use that multiple times to exhaust multiple units.
All right. He comes out on 5. He's a 3/7 Underworld Bounty Hunter. So to kind of begin, the first thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, right, was the fact that we had a clarification. And this is where I decided to take this a little bit more seriously. So Tyler from FFG essentially said, we have a clarification for when damage is done, right? Originally, we thought you have to attack, it would exhaust, yada, yada. They ask a couple of different questions. And Tyler says the damage is dealt by an ability, so it can't be dealt to LTP, which I don't know exactly what LTP is. But what
Lurking
I do...
TIE Phantom.
What's that? Oh.
Lurking TIE Phantom. Yeah.
I see. So the damage is dealt by an ability, so it can't be dealt to Lurking TIE Phantom. So Lurking TIE Phantom is still restricted from this. But the damage is coming from an ability on the unit, so the unit is dealing the damage. Jango plus Flamethrower works the way you want it, so he'll exhaust all the units he damaged. For those of you who don't know, the Flamethrower essentially says deal 1 to 3 damage to up to 3 units, and basically, it doesn't say up to 3, but it's basically you can do it up to 3 units, and you can do 1 damage to each of them. And so essentially, Jango would be able to play that on something or on himself, and then be able to exhaust things. Now, the big deal here, right? Like, this is an automatic, right? It's a may, but it is an automatic. So when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit, it can exhaust. So basically, when he's on his leader side, you're only getting 1 exhaust. It can't exhaust all 3. But when it's on its unit side, it can exhaust everything. So then you have to kill Jango right away. And maybe that's going to be just the key is people just wipe out Jango and it won't matter. But I said, well, hold on a second. Well, how many units does this work with, right? Because if you think about it, if you have 1 million units on the board, it's inconsequential, right? But if you only got 2 or 3 units on the board, this becomes extremely, extremely important. And so what I wanted to do is kind of look at them in categories. So these are the ground units that are basically when played and when defeated, right? And so these are all the different units you can get. So for example, there's ISB Agent, which nobody ever plays really, right? Like, who plays that except for maybe in I play it in a Tarkin space deck sometimes. But other than that, who plays ISB Agent? But it says when you play, you may deal a damage to another unit. Here you have Death Trooper, you have Palpatine, you have Wild Rancor, right? These are all things that just trigger that do damage when you play them or when they come out, right? Then we move over to Covetous Rivals, which nobody plays except for JJ. JJ is the only person I know in history that plays this card. Which is fine. It is a 6-cost 5/5 with grit, and it has a when played ability. You may deal 2 damage to something that has a bounty, right? So think about it. Because it's on attack or on played, it does that damage. It can exhaust something, and it doesn't matter. So you can play this, and so you can ambush you can ambush this out. Well, I guess you can't. You would have to have green to ambush it out. So I guess that's a little bit false because Jango's yellow. But you can either which way you could play this out, and then when this comes out, if somebody has a bounty on it, you can immediately exhaust them. So this works like now all of a sudden bounties become a little bit more impactful for this. Or Jabba's Rancor, which just does 3 damage. And if you come back up, Jango says when a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit. So it's not your own unit. So you don't even have to worry about Jabba's Rancor doing the 3 damage to you. It doesn't matter. You could do it to you. You're still doing the damage across the board to exhaust other thing. Bosk, when you play a card, you get to do damage. So Bosk, you play an event, and now you're exhausting something. So you can play No Good to Me Dead, and then because of Bosk, you could do 2 damage to another unit and exhaust that unit. And now you have 2 units exhausted for the cost of 2.
Wow. So good.
Dengar is when you play an upgrade, right? So you play any bounty basically on another unit, you can exhaust it. Greedo is the when defeated, and so is this new heavy trooper, which is hilarious because I didn't realize it, but it does say when defeated, deal 1 damage to every enemy ground unit.
Yep, and it doesn't require the coordinate for that, which is even great. Yeah, that potential there, especially if you have Jango out on the board and you essentially put this in as an ambush and ends up killing something and dies in the process, you can just deal damage to everybody else that's on the board and trigger Jango's ability. Can be really strong.
Yeah. So now we move on to other units, right? So now we have ground units that are on attack. So these are all on attack units, right? So that's even crazier. So Crate Dragon with Jango. So if you haven't won the game by then, when Crate Dragon plays, you can just do damage to a character and exhaust it. Crosshair, obviously, you have to use the action for it, but Crosshair is kind of the same thing. What were you asking, JJ?
So I did have a question on the interaction with Ambush and Crate Dragon and Jango, right? So let's assume that you have Jango out and Crate Dragon, and your opponent plays an Ambush unit. You would obviously do the Crate Dragon's ability, right? Assuming that you don't just win the game by just putting damage into the base. If you damage the ambush unit with the Crate Dragon ability and it survives, can you then exhaust it and prevent the ambush?
The answer is sure, but for anything to ambush into a Crate Dragon to not kill it is pretty low. A. Yeah. And B, the difference would be is that your opponent who is in control would order the timing. So what they would then do is they would say they want to order their timing first. And so they would resolve their actions first. And if you aren't a nice person, so if you play in a planetary qualifier, then you don't have to do that. But in every other circumstance, you should never do that to somebody. That would be so mean. Be like, oh, you didn't order that correctly. Therefore, Bob, by the way, I'm not going to exhaust you. So I think that there's also nested actions, and I think we'd have to get into it in more detail, but I think with the nested actions, like there would be some timing pieces to it that would not allow it. But for the sake of argument, it's just easier to say your opponent would never order that, therefore it would never happen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So then you have Salacious Crumb has the passive action to pick it up, but it gets to ping any ground unit. Karistan, you have Karistan, Fennec, Kit, Fifth Brother, IG-11, which nobody runs, but might be really good. Jedha Agitator, by the way, which has never really been a big thing. Even in set 1, it wasn't a thing. Could now be a thing. And then Seventh Sister, right? So Seventh Sister attacks your base, avoids your Sentinel, and then can just exhaust something. Fifth Brother, by the way, when you put a specific upgrade on Fifth Brother, now it's even crazier. You can exhaust a whole ground board. So now we have space units. These are the space units. We have that new elite starfighter, by the way. When you defeat it, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. So now, and this is yellow. So this is an auto including Jango. Period. This is an auto. You can either kill something yourself, or if something wants to kill you because you're being aggro and they have to stop your units, you they better attack with all their other units. So there are these timing things, and this is where Unlimited is different than all these other games. In some other games, you get like a whole action phase to yourself. Unlimited is a back and forth interaction, which is why I like it a little bit better, because it feels a little bit less like I'm going to not be able to play the game, and a little bit more like I'm going to be able to play it a little bit, unless you're playing against like Red and Blue, then you don't forget to play the game. But this type of a thing, if I have this ready and you have a ready spaceship and you swing into it, I'm exhausting some other unit you have. It's just going to happen. And that one does it to any unit. Same with the Ryoki gunship. Nobody ever plays that ship, right? But now deal 1 damage to a unit or a base. So it now is a 2-cost exhaust mechanism for Jango. Interceptor, obviously that's an easy one. Devastator, the same thing. Ruthless Raider just got so good in Jango.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Just so good. The last ones we have for you is upgrades. So there's your Van Brace flamethrower, right? So on attack, you may deal 3 damage divided as you choose among enemy ground units. So basically up to 3 units. That's just stupid, by the way. That's that card. You like, if you put that card on, like, we're gonna have to have upgrade hate come out, because that card is gonna be instantly played in Jango all the time. Vader's lightsaber, Fallen lightsaber, which is the one I was talking about with Fifth Brother, because if it's a force unit, deal 1 damage to every ground unit the defending player controls. So if they have, so here you go. This stupid upgrade can exhaust every one of your clone troopers. There you go. Like, just, they're gone. They're done. They're done. So. And then Hardpoint Heavy Blaster, which I've never seen anybody ever play this card ever. But you can now use your vehicle to do this, right? So now your vehicle, if this unit isn't attacking a base, you could deal 2 damage to a unit in the defender's arena. So now you could use this to exhaust things again. And like, you get +2/+2. I don't know. This is great for a lurking TIE Phantom, by the way.
Yeah. Definitely really great for a lurking TIE Phantom, because you're essentially just starting to just deal damage to defenders in the area, and on top of that, if your opponent doesn't have enough space units to uh, to strike down your lurking TIE Phantom, he's probably going to exhaust one and deal 1 to another, and yeah, there goes your space team, just unable to take out that lurking TIE Phantom, because you won't have a unit that can go into it and attack it. So, man, it could be really strong.
Yeah. The last ones we have is the 3 events I found. I think there might be a few more events, but these are the only ones I found. So essentially, Strike True. Obviously, you do damage because it's a friendly unit doing the damage. That's where the difference between units and events are. FFG has clarified and basically said it has to be a unit with the text on it. This is saying the unit is going to do the damage. Overwhelming Barrage is the exact same thing. Give a friendly unit this amount for the phase, then it deals damage. Headhunting is attack with 3 units, 1 at a time, and they can't attack bases for these attacks. Each bounty hunter gets +2/+2. So this one does it directly. This one is not like directly out of hand damage, right? Like the other 2 are. But this one is, hey, I've got a bunch of battle droids sitting around. Now I can play this thing and I can attack with all of them and exhaust things. Crazy, right? That's just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Jango seems a little bit more precarious than we thought originally.
Yeah, definitely. When you start factoring all these different types of upgrades and events and space units, I mean, just with the ones that we mentioned by itself, you can pretty much create a solid Django deck with what we got here so far, and you have a lot of different options to really take advantage of Django's ability. It is very resource dependent, so you definitely need to have enough resources to consistently play units and events that can really take advantage of Django's ability. But if you do and you manage to just consistently do that, it can be really, really strong. The one thing I would probably add on to this into a deck that has Jango is probably like a smuggling compartment on a couple of units or vehicle units that can ready resources so that we can play more cards that can exhaust more units. That's probably something that I would probably include in this particular deck. But yeah, you just have a lot of great cheap options that can really take advantage of Django's ability. And I think that's what makes him a menace.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's move on to our last segment. We're going to cover our Chaos of War segment where we look at different metas and analyze them for you. All right. Welcome to our Chaos of War. This is where we discuss the meta for the week. And we got some stuff to discuss because there's a 150 person tournament in France that I want to go over. There was 18 store showdowns or something, maybe 9 store showdowns in Paris. And then, of course, JJ went to his first ever store showdown this week and got to actually meet one of the gentlemen that listens to the show. JJ, how was your store showdown? What went on, buddy?
It was great, man. We had, I believe, 32 registered players. We only ended up going with 28, and had 5 rounds yesterday over at Atomic Empire, and it was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of different style of decks there. But big shout out to Mike, who drove all the way out from Virginia to come and play over in our Durham store. And yeah, he came in and he kicked some butt and took the win here. So he was running a ACL Boba Fett list here, which is definitely really strong. So we got 2 copies of Greedo, 1 copy of Timely Intervention, 3 Hotshot DL of 44 blasters, 1 copy of McClunky, 2 No Good to Be Deads, 3 Viper Droids, 3 Bazines, 3 Dr. Evazons, 3 Boba Fett's armor, 3 resupplies, 3 Boba Fett's, 1 7 Fleet Defender. We have 2 copies of Waylay, 3 Super Laser Techs, 3 Lurky TIE Phantoms, 3 Overwhelming Barrages, 1 Steadfast Battalion, 2 copies of Bosk, 3 Fett Fire Sprays, 3 Vaders, and 3 Mauls. And then in the sideboard here, we got a copy here of Waylay. We got the 3 copies of the Phase 3 Dark Trooper, 2 Black Sun Enforcers, 1 Traitorous, 1 Walker, and 2 copies of Relentless to fill up that sideboard there. I'm telling you, a man after my own heart, putting in one-offs of a couple of cards on his deck and wins a store showdown with it. Congrats, Mike. You did it. You proved that you can put one-offs in a deck and still win.
Yeah, well, that means the one-offs aren't as important, JJ. And the difference between him and you, buddy, is your one-offs are like throughout 80% of the deck. So 50% of your deck is onesie twosie things. His is over 90% consistent. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yep. And this version of Boba is definitely a little bit different. This is the what I would call the Boba non bounty hunter version, right? So it specifically is trying to end you with Maul and Vader and the fire spray. I will say that the Viper Pro Droids are an interesting include that's newer for it. And only having 1 7 Fleet Defender is probably I would assume this is a meta call because if you're playing in a higher control meta, people, especially with blue, people are running making openings, and that just ruins that card for Boba. And I will tell you, when I play Kira and play against Boba, I mulligan for making opening and power the dark side. Just for that, if you play that 7 Fleet Defender, I'm just going to kill it. That's my goal. I like the Bazine include. Overall, though, this is a pretty standard deck. The 1 McClunky is probably an encase thing, right? Being able to pick something up that you really need to. It works really well with Maul, by the way. But other than that, I'm assuming that the 2 Relentless are for control to side in. But overall, I think this deck like overpowers a lot of aggro-ish type decks and can kind of walk all over things. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, the combination of Boba's ability being able to get resources back after you eliminate a unit, combined with like super laser techs and resupply. You're able to get a lot of good, like a lot of resources into your deck faster, as you have more resources to spend over the long run. So that enables you to bring out some of your bigger units onto the board, namely like Fet's Fire Spray or Vader or Maul, in quicker and sooner. And then once they're out on the board, being able to use Overwhelming Barrage on those units, you're able to close the game as you're able to wipe your opponent's board and then swing into the base for a big swing. So definitely, something that to keep an eye out in the future for this style of deck. I think it's really solid. It has a lot of answers for a lot of different types of decks.
All right, we're gonna move on to the showdown weekend from Paris. We're not going over every deck, but this is kind of showing you the different decks that won. So Han Blue won. We had a Boba Yellow, a Boba Blue actually won one, which is that's pretty good. Another Boba Yellow, a Bosk Blue, Sabine ECL, Han Blue again, Sabine, Cad, Palpatine Green. Thank you, buddy. And a Bosk Green is what I will call that. So you can see the meta. I feel the meta still is pretty diverse. It's not as diverse as I would like it to be. But having that Cad Bane target, like that Cad Bane coming in, that's pretty good, right? Like seeing a Cad Bane show up. It is only a 6-person tournament, so I don't know how well that will do outside of that. But just being able to see, like it's not all Sabines. But if you're prepping for a show store down or for a qualifier, this is these are the decks we've been telling you are going to show up. This Cad Bane and Palpatine are a little off there. But we have another showdown or another planetary qualifier that starts next week. You'll be able to see kind of some of the meta. But moving on to the I don't know, the Dark Moor de France or whatever. I don't know how you ever say this because I don't speak French. But this was a 150-person tournament. So this was like a 2-day event. This is a little bit more. As you can see, these are the top 16. You had somebody that went 12-2 and had a 23-7 overall record. That's pretty good. Top 8 decks were 6 different decks, again showing that the meta, at least over there, is a little bit different. You had 1 Bosk, 4 Boba, 1 Kira, a Han, and a Kylo. I'm very interested in that Kylo. Top 12 decks go in, or top 16 decks have 12 different decks with 6 different Bobas, 2 Kiras, 2 Hans, a Bosk, another Han, a Kylo, a Lando showing up, a Sabine, and a Tarkin. And then top 32 had 50% of the meta different. And then top 64 had 31 different decks, so almost 50% of the meta as well. So we are seeing like a variety of decks. We're not getting, in my opinion, we're not getting the biggest variety that I would like to see. But if we're talking, this is a very high level tournament, right? 150 people. This is not a store showdown. This is definitely like a Gen Con esque tournament. And I think the big thing here, and we're not going to go over every one of the decks tonight because I don't want to spend all that time doing that. But the biggest thing here, right, is understanding that these are what you've got to look for. So we if you haven't looked yet, we have an episode last week where we go into a little bit more detail about each of the different types of decks that are popular. Maybe we'll do one on some of the less popular decks, and kind of go through some of that next week. But this is kind of what you're looking at. You're looking at Boba Green, Boba Yellow, Kira, Han 1, I'm assuming yellow, Bosk either blue or green, Han Blue, Kylo, Lando, and obviously Sabine ECL. And 1 Tarkin for JJ.
Yes.
So here's the winner. Elliot, this is the deck Elliot brought, which is a Bosk Blue. JJ, why don't you go over this? Like, this one's a little bit different than the other Bosk Blue. And I want to touch on this a little bit because this is what people are saying is a Sabine killer. And while I'm prepping and everybody's prepping, if you're running Sabine, this is something that you should just be looking out for. And how are you going to play against this?
Yeah, so we got the Boss Blue deck here. We got a copy of Restock, 3 top targets, 3 Entrench, 2 Force Chokes, 3 Death Marks, 3 Part of the Dark Side, 2 Making Openings, 3 Open Fires, 3 Decliants, 3 copies of Lieutenant Schultzen, 3 vigilances, 3 takedowns, 3 fellow dragons, 2 bounty hunter crew, 3 rival falls, 3 super laser blasts, 2 copies of Emperor Palpatine, 2 copies of Snoke, 2 copies of Avenger, and 2 copies of Crate Dragon. And then in the sideboard here, we got an extra copy of Restock, another Force Choke, 3 copies of Bazine, another Make an Opening, 2 copies of the Clan Saxon Gauntlet, a third copy of Snoke, and another copy of Avenger to round off the list there. Definitely offers a lot of control there. So it's not very unit heavy until you get into the higher cost there, but you're essentially you're pushing in a lot of bounties on there, which allows boss to take advantage of his ability just to ping damage onto that unit there. You offer a lot of board control with a lot of the event cards that allow you to remove units from play, and then you factor in the client, which can be used to add even more bounty onto opposing units there. Charlton being able to deploy with a lot of experience, since you have a lot of blue cards in your hand on there, offers a lot of utility for there. The Bounty Hunters crew, even though it's off aspect, you're paying the aspect penalty, making this an 8. Still offers some pretty good utility with that ambush and its ability there. And then Palpatine and Snoke just slam the door shut. You're able to, with Snoke, reduce the health and attack of enemy units, and then Palpatine can come in and deal his damage to the list and wipe out the board pretty well. And then Avenger and Crate Dragon just come in to finish the job for taking out your opponent's base. So yeah, definitely a lot of control. It's really good. It just shuts down the tempo of a lot of aggressive decks, and you can do a lot with it.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is understanding, what the top targets and the marks do, right? Because top target allows you to essentially put it on somebody and then ping somebody for a free damage, right? So you could put it on a low health character, ping them, and then it turns around, right, and kills your base. And when Bosk is out, if you put it on, like, for example, if you put it on Sabine, ping Sabine, she doesn't have a dark saber, you then deploy Bosk, kill Sabine, right? You now are healing 12 damage.
Yeah.
So, um, I think the big thing with this deck is the fact that you're getting extra damage. So this is where we haven't seen a lot of control decks always work well um with aggro decks, right? This deck gives you that, and then you have boss that allows you to double hit. You also have the client. The client can just be exhausted
Mhm.
and for a couple of turns, and then basically go, "Oh, here you go. I'm going to get rid of you." The other thing that this deck doesn't have is there's no pillage in this deck.
Mhm.
They opted away from pillage, which I actually agree with. I am not super high on pillage personally. Pillage is okay if they're playing a lot of lower to the ground units, but like outside of, like, if you're playing against a Kylo deck and you haven't controlled their board, you're probably losing at that point by the time you get to
Yeah.
the village pillage thing. I like this type of a deck. This is like taking over the Vader blue spot a little bit. This doesn't rely specifically on mill to be an end game, but does rely on giving you kind of the middle finger like Vader did a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, and the other stinky thing with this too is entrenched. Since you're not having a lot of units out on the board early on, when your opponent puts out those powerful units on the board, you put entrenched on them, and even though you have no units on your side, they still can attack your base. And now you can put in bounties on them and eliminate them and get the reward from it, which is absolutely great, especially if you force your opponent to just pass and then you deploy your boss and get double the bounty. I mean, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. The runner up was a Boba Green deck. Very similar to the other one we saw. This one has Cobb Vances in it. A little bit more ambush with the Cloud Rider than we saw earlier. There's nothing in here that's like that much different than the other thing we see. I still think these decks should be running commission. I'm very surprised none of them are not running commission, um, even as a two of. Then we kind of move into top 4. We have a Boba Yellow. This is again the standardish Boba Yellow Bounty Hunter deck. Not going to go over that in too much detail. Then we have a Kira Green. This is the 30 health one that is not running Chilson. So this is actually different than what we covered last week. What we talked about last week was, the ECL. This is one without ECL and without Chilson. So this one is just saying I want an extra 5 health because don't want to deal with the Sabines of the world. Really the only big difference with that is there's an extra takedown in here that they didn't have before. There's a couple of extra heavier units, and then these rivals fall is kind of what is the bigger difference. So there's no Chilsons. They're still relying on ramp and then controlling your board a little bit that way. Top targets are in the sideboard. Choose your sides is now like a thing. I still don't like that card, but I have had it played against me a couple of times. I had somebody when I was playing Pelp, I played a Devastator, and then they played choose sides and gave me a TIE Fighter for my Devastator. So that was pretty funny. If we move into the top 8, we have this is the Han Yellow. Again, we've gone over this. We didn't go over this as a meta staple, and maybe this is one we need to come back to. I'm not going to go through it tonight, like in extreme detail. We could kind of come back to this maybe next week and kind of go over a few of the other decks that we feel maybe are going to be staples later. But this is similar, and then another Boba Yellow that's almost identical to the other one. Another Boba Yellow, so there you go, baby. Like Boba Yellows are here. They're coming. They came back. But then we kind of get into a Kylo Yellow, and I wanted JJ. Let's go over this deck only because this deck is a little bit different. We have not seen this all the time. This has popped up. I actually like this deck a lot. This is different than the deck I'm running. This is a higher than a low. Like I run a very low to the ground Kylo deck. This is a little bit higher. This is more of a space-oriented triple dark raid deck that also can give you a ground vehicle unit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got this yellow Kylo deck here running 3 copies of Death Star Stormtroopers, 3 Greedos, 3 TIE Fighters, 3 Reckless Gunslingers, 2 daring raids, rather, 3 copies of Cartel Spacers, 2 sneak attacks, 2 Kylo TIE Silencers, 3 Armed to the Teeth, 3 copies of Surprise Strike, 2 Mercenary Gunships, 3 Fallen Lightsabers, 3 Seven Fleet Defenders, 3 TIE Phantoms, 3 Triple Dark Raids, 3 Ruthless Raiders, 2 ATSTs, and 3 Xanadu Bloods. And then in the sideboard here, we got 2 copies of Confiscate, 2 Force Chokes. We have a 3rd Sneak Attack, and then 2 copies of Bazine, 1 Outmaneuver, and 2 copies of Waylay to round off the list here. Definitely really interesting here because you're not really focusing so much on getting Kylo's ability off as much, although you could if you really wanted to. You're probably playing Kylo a lot later in the rounds as you start, dwindling down your hand to get Kylo out onto the board to make sure that he has really good stats when he deploys as a leader. But in the meantime, you're setting yourself up really with a really good board state. You have a lot of great cheap units that can do damage if they're left untouched, and they're easily replaced with other units that could take its place there. The TIE Phantom is a really good triple dark raid unit that can just come in and do some damage, even with the Ruthless Raider as well. Being able to deal damage to a unit and to the base can be really, really strong. So it's a nice mix up for what we normally see for Kylo. And yeah, congrats on making that top 8.
Yeah, like I said, this was just not as low to the ground, but that sneak attack just has so many things that you can hit, right? Like this Ruthless Raider, you bring this out for 3 costs, right? And then I guess it's not technically 3 costs. It's the sneak attack cost. But so anyways, it's a 4 cost. But you bring this out, it does a 2 damage, does 2 damage to a unit. You can swing with it, and then it does 2 more damage on its way out to a unit in the base. So like, just the value of that is just huge. Yeah, I think this is a very interesting deck. This is newer. I've not played against this yet. I don't know if I like this better than the low to ground one, but it's interesting. Another deck that we wanted to cover that was kind of unique was this Lando Tarkin Town deck, and Lando's kind of a newer deck that we haven't seen a ton of, but one that I wanted to point out because this one is using Lando's actual smuggle function, right? So you have the heroic sacrifice, you have Greedos, you have the reckless gunslingers, you have the hotshot blasters, right? And some of these things can be smuggled in. And when Lando, his ability basically says is defeat a resource or smuggle it in, then defeat one resource. So again, this one has a little bit higher curve because of it has the Falcons in there. But outside of that, like your highest cost one is 4. So you only got to have the 4 resources on board. So just to go over this real quick, you have your heroic sacrifices, you have 3 Greedos, 3 of the reckless gunslingers, 2 hotshot blasters, 3 daring raid, 3 cartel turncoats, 2 of the criminal muscle, which is I've never seen this card played. But it allows you to take your upgrades from your discard and bring it back in. 2 McClunkies. You have 2 Lady Proximas, 3 A-Wings, 2 Leias, 3 Spark of the Rebellions, 3 Arm to the Teeth, 3 L337s, 3 Surprise Strikes, 3 Falcons, 3 Cassians, 3 of, I think that, I don't remember, the Valiant gunships, and then 2 of the Falcons, of the high cost Falcons. And so like that Falcon can come out for 4, so it's really not that big of a deal, but that's just all you're getting to play that turn. The Cassians is like the big one. Because you resource the Cassian, he instead of playing him for the 5 cost, you're playing him for 3 and he comes out ready. It's like you just got to defeat a resource to do it.
Yeah.
This is a Lando. Lando is like the deck that, in my opinion, is on the bubble. Like this could be really good into like a very aggro-ish meta.
Yeah, I agree. I like this a lot. Just being able to use that criminal muscle combined with the DL44 blaster is surprisingly sneaky because you essentially can equip that blaster onto a unit that's ready and make an attack. And if it dies, you just play another criminal muscle, get that blaster back into your hand, and then play it onto another unit that you have and rinse and repeat as you need to. So it extends the life of that blaster, and you're essentially attacking with that unit much stronger than before. And you could put some really big damage onto an opponent's base that way. So it's a nice little combo wombo there between the two.
All right. And then the last one we had was a Hero Boba Blue deck. Like usually you see Luke in this slot, but I pulled this deck because this is a JJ deck, and I wanted to go through this because I couldn't believe I don't understand what this deck is trying to do with all the one-offs, but I thought let's bring it together. JJ's going to read us the deck, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about this deck.
All right, so we got the green, blue Boba deck here. Got 2 copies of Confiscate, 3 Restored Arc 170s, 3 Battlefield Marines, 2 Queels, 3 Gamorrean Guards, 2 Making Openings, 2 Echo Base Defenders, 3 Resupplies, 3 Village Protectors, 3 Sindari Peacekeepers, 1 Tech, 2 Takedowns, 3 copies of Bright Hope, 2 Fell the Dragons, 3 Modded Cohorts, 1 Rogue Squadron, 1 copy of The Mandalorian, 1 copy of Rivals Fall, 3 Luke Skywalkers, 3 U-Wing reinforcements, 1 copy of Redemption, and 3 copies of Home 1. And then in the sideboard here, we got 2 top targets, 2 Concordia Dawn Interceptors, 2 more copies of Tex, an additional Fell the Dragon, 1 Choose Sides, and then 2 Arkansas Cruisers to round off that particular list.
So yeah, so what's crazy about this deck is there's just these one-offs, and I get it. I get like because you do have the U-Wing reinforcement, right? So that's kind of what you're playing, and like everything has a keyword.
Yeah.
Like I don't think he has any. He has 1 unit that doesn't have a keyword on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is just the Battlefield Marines, which is I'm assuming it's just because it's your turn 1 play. Though you could put those Wookiees in there. Are those Wookiees a 2 cost or a 3 cost?
They are 3 cost. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. So I
Yeah, I
don't know.
mean, you can put in the Battlefield Marines into your resource pile and then pull them out later on with tech, um, and do it that way if you really need to. But I mean,
You're not doing that. No, nobody's doing that. You're playing the
yeah,
Battlefield Marines turn one if that's what you get. That's the
yeah,
idea is you have to have the turn one plays. I think the Gamorrean guards are hilarious though because they have the keyword Sentinel, but only if you have another green unit.
yeah,
But you can play the Battlefield Marine and then turn two you could play your Gamorrean guards and give it the buff if that's what you want,
yeah,
right? Um, or you could give the buff to the Battlefield Marine, all sorts of crazy stuff. So I don't know. I was very weirded out that this has just like, why do I only have one Mandalorian? Like, where's my Obi-Wan Kenobis? There's no Obi-Wan Kenobis in here, and they're
yeah,
Sentinels, so they could fit in here. Only one
yeah,
redemption is crazy to me. But I think this deck has legs, and that's why I wanted to kind of go over it with everybody, is because I do think this deck has legs, and I think this is something unique that you aren't going to see a lot of, but could become more popular. This is obviously not a control-ish deck. This is definitely more of a mid-range, higher mid-range deck. It's looking to use Boba's ability to like great extent. And I'm happy they have the text on the sideboard because I feel that you would want more text in this deck. Um,
yeah.
but maybe tech just isn't as useful. So
No, I agree. I definitely like having tech in this deck just to allow you to pull units on out of your resource pile to bring them out when you need to. You never know when you need a Sentinel unit to come out onto the board, and just help bridge the like stopgap your opponent's offense, or heck, even bringing out a redemption out of your resource deck to help heal your base, could be really strong for that time. So it also helps you just to rely on your event cards they have on there, knowing that you can bring have tech out and bring out a lot of your other units that you've resourced early on onto the board and just help heal your base. And so you can bring some of your larger units like Home One and Luke Skywalker up to help you finish off the game. And yeah.
well, all right. Well, that is our show for tonight. Thank you all so much for joining us. We had an amazing time. Yeah, we'll be back next week Sunday with more Star Wars Unlimited stuff. I know PQ season has started, so hopefully I think there's one next weekend, so hopefully we'll get the results for that next weekend as well. So we'll probably be covering that going into the field. We also have a deck tech coming at you later this week. Hopefully I'll be able to get with Crispy and get something like that teched out for you. I already started working on it, just got to finalize it and make it presentable. Also, if you are interested in our X-Wing podcast, we will be having an X-Wing podcast that will release this week as well, going over some of the new AMG standard
Print
loadout
and play.
cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. That are the print and play ones. So you're able to check that out as well. That'll be coming out later towards the end of the week. With that being said, thank you. Have a good night, and we'll see you on the flippity flop.
Have a good night, everybody.